Okay guys, let's take a look at our tugboat. First we'll take a look out of the water, and then I'm going to take you on a tour in the water. Just looking out the outside, you can see our big propeller for pushing us through the water. You can see the boat is big and strong. It's made out of steel, and it takes 15 feet of water to float. Let's take a look on the outside. This is the Tugboat Independent. We're a harbor ship assist tug, and we bring ships on and off the dock. Why don't you come step aboard and come check out our tugboat? Come on aboard. On these boats for a week at a time. Why don't you come inside and see where we live? Okay, as we come into the boat, we're going to see my cabin, the engineer's cabin. You can see my bed, some work clothes, a TV. It's not very big because remember, it's inside of a tugboat. It also has my office area with my computer and a lot of books and reference materials. Right. This is our galley, which is like your kitchen at home. We have food, we have snacks and bread, we have a full refrigerator with everything we could want, including lots and lots of ice cream. As you can see on the boat, we do not go hungry. Anything you want, we get. Every crew member gets a certain amount of money. Some boats, they all spend their money on their own. On our boat, we all pool it together and have big meals just like you do at home. We have more crew quarters. Everyone on our boat gets their own bedroom. And upstairs, we have the pilot house. This is where the captain and the mate drive the boat. These are the controls of the boat. So we have a captain and a mate and a deckhand. The deckhand learns that the mate has already kind of learned, and the captain's an expert. They can turn the boat any direction they want. They always know everything that's going on, where they are. We listen on radios to the pilots and the captains of the ship to know what we're doing. And if you look, we have windows all the way around so we can see everything that goes on the boat. We'll take you down into the engine room, and this is the power of the ship. We have 5,000 horsepower worth of engines. When we fill up at the gas station comes to us and brings 7,500 gallons of fuel. These are our two engines on board. And then if you come back, the two engines turn giant spinning propellers that can turn in every single direction. Come check out our room. We also have two generators, and we can make our own electricity on the boat right here. And these are our rotating Z drives. Hi, I'm Cody, the engineer on the tugboat. We have 4 crew members, a captain, a mate, an engineer, and a deckhand. We each have our own job. We all live on the boat for 7 days at a time. None of us can miss a day. If you need to be gone for a day, someone else has to come in on their day off and be on this boat. The boat always has to have 4 people on board. The captain, he's up there right now driving the ship. The mate drives the ship when the captain's asleep. He's down below sleeping. The deckhand does all the work on deck for maintenance. So if you think anything on the outside of the ship, painting, chipping rust, washing the boat, cleaning the boat, the deckhand also does a lot of cleaning on the inside living areas of the boat. Everything else comes down to me, the engineer. I clean the engine room, I check oil levels, coolant levels, electrical problems. That all comes to me. I have to keep all the machinery running on the boat. So that means the engines, the generators, even the air conditions, even the toilets. Anything mechanical comes down to my responsibility. So we each have a different job on the boat. I'll show you some of the things that I do on my job. One of the big ones is checking all the gauges and levels for pressure and temperature and leaks and maybe smells or anything else that could go wrong. I also do periodic changes for oil or filters or all the other little things that need to periodically be changed. Another thing I do is I fix things or figure out how to fix things or figure out who we need to call to come and bring in and fix it. That's called troubleshooting. I might not know the answer, but I can figure out what the trouble is, what the problem is, and then maybe look up a solution, or I know who to call and they might know the answer because the boat's got to keep moving. All right, we're going to show you around some of my jobs in the engine room. A big part about my job is paper logbooks and electronic logbooks. All my tasks come to me in a computer and they're recorded in a logbook so that every little part of every single job I can check and say if it was done or if it was not done. I have a legal responsibility to be honest and accurate. If I get caught saying I did something I didn't, it would be very bad. We check all of our components constantly every month. We take samples of oil. Each machine has oil in it to keep the metal parts lubricated, and we need to take samples and send them in for an analysis, and then that way we know if our oils are working well or need to be changed. That requires, you guessed it, more paperwork to fill out, and then more stuff to fill out on the computer. We also check our coolant. We check those with litmus paper using science for all the different things and the characteristics of the coolant. We have to make sure it's working really good. In order to do all this maintenance, we have lots and lots of tools on the boat. This is just a small fraction of all the tools I have to get all the jobs done. If you want to see a job, here's an oil change on our generator. There are also a lot of small jobs we need to do on a regular basis. These are our Raycor fuel filters, and they keep all the water and dirt and sludge that might get in our fuel from getting into our big engines and stopping them up. Fuel manifold. This controls all the different fuel tanks on the ship, and I control where fuel is going or coming from, coming into the ship or going into the various tanks we have. These tanks hold thousands and thousands of gallons of fuel. To think about your parents' car, it probably holds maybe 20. When we're transferring fuel from the different compartments or when we're taking on fuel, everything has to be controlled manually. These are gate valves, and I open and close them and power it with a pump. As you can see, there's lots of different valves, and I have to know which each one is and where it's going and make sure that I open them all the way and close them. Then we take measurements out of a sight glass and I come over to this book of tables where I go over and do all the math to figure out how much fuel I moved and how much fuel is in the tanks, because we need to know how much fuel we have on board for the jobs we're doing and for our company to know how much money they're spending and to know when we need to get more fuel. Here's a crappy job I have. Every time we use the bathroom, it comes down these pipes and it comes into this containment where it gets converted to be able to be dumped back into the water. That beautiful water you swim in is full of this stuff. We make our own electricity on board when we're not plugged into the shore, and it's all controlled by a giant electrical panel. And I assure you, it looks terrifying on the inside. We use special codes and symbols to know what everything on the boat is. This is a key for our piping. So every pipe you see in this crazy maze of pipes and tubes, it's all labeled, and we can look at what colors are on the label and then go back to our key and know exactly what that pipe is, what it does, what's inside it. This is how we keep track of all the different pipes you see through the engine room. Can you tell which pipe is which? We have air compressors on board. Air is how we start our engines, with a big thing of very compressed, super strong air that we make on board. And let me show you, it is very loud. Well, everyone's favorite part of the week, the end. At the end of the week, before we get off, we got to clean the whole boat. That means the engine room too. So we wipe down all the engines and the floors and keep it spick and span for the next guy who's coming on to start his 7 days of working. Here are our winches. We send a line up to the ship. The line is a messenger, and it's easy to pull up. We tie it to their line, and they start pulling it up. Then comes the big line. This line can handle hundreds of thousands of pounds of pressure and tugging. Our ship tugging on a giant container ship or a big ship full of oil. And this is the line that we use to pull the ship on and off the dock. The other big part of my job and the deckhand's job is putting up the lines. I put up the lines when the deckhand's asleep, and the deckhand puts up the lines when I'm asleep. Sometimes the ships are moving, like on an inbound when it's coming in to Tampa, and then sometimes the ships are still, like on an outbound when the ships are going out of Tampa. You can see the messenger and then the big headline. This line is the line that is going to do all of the pulling and all of the work. Sometimes they throw a line to me, and sometimes I throw a line to them. It just depends how tall the ship is. Some of these ships are very, very, very large. Once they're leaving and they're empty of all their cargo, they get much taller than when they come in loaded down. Sometimes they come in empty to get cargo, and then they leave very low in the water. Everything on deck has to be very safe. These lines are very big, they're very strong, and they're very powerful. Sometimes we work at night, and sometimes we work in the daytime. Remember, there's 24 hours in a day, and we each work for 12 hours. So if you look on the bright side, hey, it's a half day every day. Here's some of the safety equipment on board. We're very worried about people getting hurt, and so everything we do, we think about safety. So we take drills for if someone was to be a man overboard and how to retrieve them. This is one of the items, and on the other side of the boat, I'll show you something even crazier. This is for if someone goes over the boat and they can't get back up on their own. It's a giant crane that comes over to the side, and we take a big stick and hook you up to it, and then we crank you on board. We're also trained in firefighting because we might not have a firefighter in the case of an emergency. So we have fire hoses located throughout the boat. We also have fire extinguishers located throughout the boat. Everyone also has life jackets, helmets, and we wear steel-toed boots. In the engine room, we have hearing protection for our ears. So like I said, safety is a very big concern on these boats. And don't forget, women can work on the boats too. There's women deckhands and engineers and even captains. Captain Dolly just got promoted to captain over on the red shift. She works when I'm off work on our boat. So it's not just guys that work on tugboats, it can be anybody. Okay, enough watching us work, let's go to the cool stuff. Well, 12 hours on means 12 hours off, but we're still stuck on the tugboat, so what do? Well, at some point, we've got to eat, so we can go out back and grill up some hamburgers and some french fries. If we're tied up to our barge, we have a little building we can go to, kind of hang out with some of the other crew members from other boats. If we're feeling like being alone, we can stay right there on the tugboat and watch TV, or play a video game in our room. Some of the people we work with like to go ride bikes, or work out, or even play a little bit of music in their free time. And hey, we gotta do our own laundry. Thanks for stopping by. I guess I gotta get back to work.